I am in my old bedroom. If you can tell from the 1970s-esque wallpaper, I suppose it was 1982 when this wallpaper was first applied to these walls that I grew up with. You are in the inside of my mind. Welcome. Truly, my old bedroom, as I was saying. This is what I was raised on. Welcome back, Artist Journal, June 14th, 2024. Broadcasting from Saskatoon, Saskatchewan, on the road. My name is Adrian Pocobelli. Continuing. Again, on the road. Kind of weirdly ironic. I mean, Art Basel is not that far from me in Berlin, and here I am crossing the world over to Saskatoon, Saskatchewan. I was thinking to myself, I was seeing the photos and everything, like, I need to go to this thing. Sometimes, like, will is everything. Here, I'm going to Brazil next week. So if I can go to Brazil, I can surely make it to Basel, which is far closer to Berlin than that. Just visiting a friend who invited me out, and I never would go otherwise, so I'm just thrilled to go to Brazil. So going to Fortaleza. So we'll see what happens with the show. I may just want to soak it all in. Then I'll be back in Berlin for a week, and then back over to Spain for a week, and then everything should be back to complete normal. So it's going to be a little sporadic for the next 2 or 3 weeks. But I'm keeping, it's very important for me to just kind of keep a narrative here. I can't just ditch this thing for 3 months and expect anything, right? And in a sense, this is going to come up a little later here. You can't expect anything. I don't expect anything anymore, to a certain degree. So all to say, welcome back, and thank you for supporting this show, and I hope you're enjoying it. And I hope it's easy to enjoy with artists like Mirit, a fabulous artist here. We've been looking at, and let me just make sure I'm getting all of the name right. This is on Foundation. I think it's Mirapixel, but I'm pretty sure it's Mirakit on Twitter. We'll see in a second here. Let's just see. It is Mirakit NFT, if you're wondering. And here is actually that first image that we're looking at here. That is on the wall, as you can see here. A fabulous image, an artist we've been looking at for, I want to say, like 2 or 3 months only. Maybe 3 months ago, 4 months ago. And has quickly kind of, put it this way, it's really fresh. Let's put it this way. It's different. It's fresh. Again, and I even like, say here, of course, this is a GIF. Kind of looks like an anime figure, right? So what would traditionally be kind of like a line art illustration, right? But here, pixelated. And you have kind of a strange subject. I mean, this could be a still from like a manga. And for those that don't know, manga is the comic, anime are the movies, so to speak, or the, animated, actually the video, right? So manga are the comics. If anybody's more of an expert, by all means, correct me. But I'm pretty sure from having worked in a comic store here in Saskatoon, Saskatchewan, that is how it works. But again, making it look easy here with the things that are left out. See this face here? Like if you're working on this at home and you're making this work, there would be little temptations that, oh, is this not enough? Right? So there's a lot of decisions that look pretty good here. Again, making it look easy. Even this GIF, even though it's a video, but this GIF-like animation of what, 2 frames? 2, 3 frames? It looks like 2 frames. Just kind of slowly, going back and forth here. And kind of giving it everything it needs, weirdly. It's a very painterly work in the way that this kind of illustration that is pixelated, right? This illustration that is pixelated, and then little areas are missing here. Just beautifully kind of, again, I want to say painterly, and it looks like an outline. In large part, the woman here. But really, so, which gives it, and gives it a kind of texture and everything. So, there's a lot to go through here. And I don't even know what's going on, kind of hilariously. Like, is that a bird in the girl's hand? Are these flowers, these yellow things? Or are they other animals? Is this behind her hand in the pond? Or this little puddle? Is it a puddle? I assume it's blue. It's the right color, but you see what I'm saying? And always with Mirit, I kind of have this sneaking suspicion that the way we're getting these rich textures are effects on effects. I am not sure, but that is kind of like my ongoing thesis here. So this is on Foundation, which now this is on Ethereum, I should add, because Foundation does base as well. So this is on Ethereum. So very cool. Murray Pixel is the name on Foundation. Let's see what it says here. GM, my collection, Aquapixel. Beautiful title. At sauna disco parties in Guadalajara, Jalisco, I think is how you'd pronounce that. So in Mexico. It is now minted and open to offers. So here is a nice big version of it. And there are other works too. So you see again this textured, this beautiful texturedness, and there's just a sense of, there's something very fresh and exciting about what we're seeing with Mirit, I feel. And it really feels to be going somewhere. And Mirit's also like on a roll, we might say, and quite prolific right now. And again, I see these kinds of interesting, complicated pixels here, complicated textures, digital textures. And what I see as a result, I would argue, is, again, it says to me, it cries out effects on effects, which is, I don't want to say it's untapped. I mean, the analog video glitch people, as we were seeing last episode with Ex Mortal, who started the show, that's kind of like their stock and trade. Is like, we'll put it through this process, then we'll put it through this process, then we'll put it through this process. So just an interesting, but I do want to say to a certain degree, underutilized technique. I would argue. If that's what's in fact going on here. Here's another one. It's on Zora, part of Zora Mafia. Circuited Ammonia, if I'm not mistaken. So more interesting titles. Free mint, 5 minutes so far. Here's another one. So you see a commonality between the works here, and you gotta love this, almost like a video game here. The others, or like a website, these almost look like buttons at the top. And again, these wonderfully textured, these wonderfully shaped buttons here, and even just the very simple animation. It's an animation that's designed to give it life and no more, right? To give it that sense of animation, but then nothing more. And I like that. I think it's really interesting. I have a series on exchange.art on Solana Beach, and so I've played with this idea. It is effects on effects on effects. And one of the things is, do I want to animate this? And if you do, if it's the sun over top of the water, are you trying to animate the water? Or are you simply kind of trying like this, different kinds of animation, we might say? Or are you just trying to make it dynamic? End of story. Are you just trying to make it move? Are you trying to make it feel alive? Give it the quality of life without necessarily animating it. So, and that's what I'd argue we have here. This isn't an animation, so to speak, although maybe technically you could say it's two different things moving against each other, but it's more just about giving the movement, adding movement to the static image, right? Beautiful. Again, looks like a screenshot. Could be AI. I mean, this could be AI anime, manga, So here's actually up close to further. And you see these little, again, what kind of, we can zoom in. You see how it's not like perfectly square, although it is kind of square. But you see how we kind of have all these variations here? The reason I say effects on effects is because I don't think Mirit is drawing every one of these little things. Like, this is a process, is what I think we can say with a certain degree of certainty here. This is processing the image and then taking different renderings or outcomes and then, perhaps animating two different outcomes. Change the dithering amount or whatever, change the contrast. And then you get these gorgeous textured digital paintings, right? Again, these canvases. So let's see, let's continue. So just beautiful, beautiful work here. This is Mirit on Zora. And we've seen these works here before. I believe I brought this up. And we've been looking at this work for, a few months here. Interestingly. And here's one more. Again, kind of a different take on it, but you see these brilliant outlines. And of course, we saw Mirit on Artsy as well. So working with a trad art gallery, selling, interestingly, the gifts through Artsy, showing a static version. Interestingly, so the gallery getting in on the situation. We'll have to return to that at a certain point. This is also on Zora, 43 minted. That's an older one. Still 19 hours left on this older one here. You got to love the composition as well. Just this upper area, the lower area, even a touch of a Scamra sort of feel to it. They could, these textured works. And again, you wonder to yourself, is this an AI, composition that has been processed the heck out of? Who knows? Very interesting. Another person who works with illustration and dithering and pixelation is Limbo, who we had on last episode on the Twitter space, on the X space on Wednesday. It was an awesome space, long overdue to get Limbo on the show, and was just an awesome space. Talked deep on comics at the start, and then all sorts of stuff. So great episode. Highly recommend it. And also Limbo is putting out, and of course I follow Limbo, that is a glitch on X. When you load up 700 tabs like I do. So Limbo is working on original comic book, The Earworm, and it's going to be on Solana, and you can see it there. So go to Limbo's page if you want to be a funder for only $6. And you see there, some of Limbo's like awesome, I want to say somewhat earlier work that you'll find on Object. Beautiful kind of surreal illustration. Now the more recent work incorporates dithering, this kind of pixelation. So we're all getting influenced by the pixel art over here. Last episode, again, pretty interesting view count. I don't know what's going on with the algorithm, but it seems to be playing nice on YouTube. 478 is pretty good for this show in one day. Usually 300 is pretty good, so 478, or I guess it's been a couple of days, but nevertheless, these are more good numbers on YouTube, which is always exciting. Let's look at the comments. Manadal. Thank you so much again to you, Pocobelli. You are welcome, Manadal. Absolutely welcome for adding our cats into your channel. You made our day. Well, I'm thrilled to hear that it can have that effect on you, Manadal, still. I'm just love your work. Kelly Burns, New York. Great to see you again, Adrian. And I believe this is the same Kells, or Kelly Burns, who has a show. We're going to look at that right over here. We're going to look at Kells. We have a new show on the ecosystem here. And Cider, hey brother, thanks for featuring me on this episode. A great one. Thank you, Cider. Just rad to hear from you, as always. Dima Karlov, and thank you so much, Adrian. Very interesting as always. You're welcome, PP Universal. Thanks, Poco. And that says, very grateful, really. Well, that's awesome. And I believe we have one or two more from PP this episode. This was hilarious. K-Town Crypto King, who always has kind of the far out comments with all of the, I want to say web dings and everything. Wow. Fellow Flatlander here. So Prairie, someone else from the Canadian prairies. Born in Humboldt, Saskatchewan, which I think is just a few hours drive from here. Summer of 69. I can see you from here. Hold the line. Hilarious. So that is hilarious. So great to hear. K-Town Crypto King is from Humboldt, Saskatchewan, in Canada's Midwest. Retro Manny, great show, Jeff. Hilarious. Adrian. Some great art today, and thanks for showing my latest trophy piece. A few topics that gave food for thought today. Firstly, the NFTs are a scam comment, and actually we have more on that. Is both old and new at the same time. Always sobering to remember how small a community we still are who actually perceive the value of NFTs, and it does always come to perceived value. Sell Me This Pen comes to mind. I think you give a balanced and thoughtful response too. Right, so of course this is referring to the other, I don't want to call it a trolling comment, but kind of a comment saying, these NFTs are worthless. They're simply links to, something on IFPS, if I am remembering that acronym correctly, to some other website, basically, or, protocol, decentralized protocol, but nevertheless another protocol. Regarding AI, another oldie but goodie. We're going to come back to that discussion in a second here. Runetoon left a detailed comment. Regarding AI, Another oldie but goodie that always crops up. I am always to and fro with this one. The initial rise of AI art was the motivation for me to change my own style and approach. Not to say I haven't collabed with AI artists before and created some of my fastest selling works to date. For me, it comes down to just the end result. I would agree with you there. It's about how the process of using AI creates new things and about how the artist communicates their intentions and expresses themselves through it, not just to mimic traditional art in an obvious way because they don't want to learn how to, for example, paint. And I think people who use AI are all lumped together in one pile, which is unfair to them. Yeah, excellent point. There is an overgeneralization that happens there. Sky Goodman, Human Boy, AI Machina, Strange Thing all come to mind when I think of artists using AI in the most profound way. I can really appreciate their craft. And it's true, anybody who actually tries to make AI art, you see actually how unsimple it is to make something poetic and well crafted. There is an artistry to it. Just like with sampling, there's an artistry in transforming things. And, so yeah, the works speak for themselves. Again, I think Strange Things, huge body of work now. And Thug Lord was, of course, like a major work that was, again, this kind of an undeniable work. We have a work by Sky Goodman this episode, a really rad work, actually. And Human Boy has just been tearing up acts. We'll have to take another look at Human Boy sometime very soon. So thank you for the comment. And just a few more. Nico Alerci. Amazing show, Adrian. I've watched it tonight and very much enjoyed it. I'm thrilled to hear that, Nico. That's totally awesome. Kels, great to see you back, Adrian. Would love to hear more about Socrates, and that is the plan. And it would behoove Tezos Foundation to listen up here at 1620. Brilliant idea. And I believe this idea. If you're going to be the art blockchain, I don't even see why they don't, as far as I understand, you could theoretically have, Bitcoin has, as far as I understand, 4 megabyte blocks. Why don't you make an art blockchain that could be 100 megabyte blocks, let's say, or even 200 megabyte blocks? I assume that's possible. And then everything just goes on chain. And if Tezos was to do an upgrade like that, it would change the blockchain, but just from my limited perspective, I am not an expert. I would say, go all in on the art, because that seems to be the main value of the blockchain from my limited, unknowing perspective. Go all in and just make it where it's all on chain. That would be amazing. And if weirdly, it hasn't happened yet, as far as I know. There should be a blockchain where everything is just purely on chain and you can put 200 megabyte files. So I'm glad you enjoy that idea, Kels. More from Kels soon here. Human Boy, artist journal around the world. It sure is. Hope you are having a wonderful visit home. Great episode. Thank you, Human Boy. I totally appreciate that. It is great to see everybody. Sanro, great episode. Thank you. I believe we have a portrait by Sanro in this episode too. Thank you. Ilya Barbarin, great job, dude. What you do is simply amazing, and I never get tired of comments like this. Thank you, Ilya. I think we actually have a drawing by you of a cell phone in the studio. OXDK, always like your positive vibes, Adrian. By the way, this artwork is by Yafig, if I'm pronouncing that right. Thank you, OXDK. Thank you for correcting me on that. I think I was getting confused there by post and whatnot. Anyway, thank you. Trippy Collector, let's go. Late night North American episode. That's exactly what happened. Kiro Eth, welcome back. Thank you, Kiro. Just trying to put them in. I'm basically, for the next couple of weeks, I'm doing them when I can. And trying to, the Twitter spaces and everything, the X spaces, and we're doing okay. We just got to keep the show on the road here until we're back, and the internet is working in Berlin, if you missed that last episode, so that is good too. Burku or Byram, great to hear from you as ever. And Booby have to start watching to the end. Awesome, thank you, Booby. So that is great. Let's look at Runetoon's comment here. 1350. Decibel 825 said NFTs are a scam. I won't give that notion words, but your response, Pocobelli, provoked me. Because I wasn't totally unsympathetic to this idea. And of course, I don't think they're a scam. But there is a point of failure here between a link. Put it this way. I think this idea, just to restate the argument as far as I recall, is this idea that there's a link to some external file and that really this is the record of the link to that external file, which is stored in the International Protocol File Service or something to this effect. Uh, there's a point of failure there. And I was sort of pointing out how Bitcoin, what's kind of cool about inscriptions is there's no point of failure, I would argue. It is putting everything on chain, right? But you have to make tiny files or spend, a fortune to put like a 100 kilobyte file on there, right? Like I'll put in a 10 kilobyte file, it'll cost me $30 if I'm lucky, right? So all to say, so just to open up the conversation here, I want to understand why that's so important to you. As far as you can put a lot of stock into this idea of inscribing blockchains with art. I want to understand why that's so important to you and stoke the conversation here. I'm under the impression that inscribing art onto the blockchain makes its token of authenticity as a digital asset more immutable. That would be the general. There's one less point of failure, is how I would put it. As Decibel 825 points out, most NFTs are just digital transactions with a link to the art, which can be easily right-click saved. And this part I don't mind, or I doesn't really carry much water with me. But it's actually the link. It is the link that is the issue, the point of failure. So if the platform or IPFS crashes, your digital asset is gone. And that, I guess that's the idea. That is the concern. Why do you care about this? Why do we care about this? It's because we value digital assets. Then maybe that's the point I'm missing. Yeah, I would just call it a structural resiliency. There's something to be said for it's just one more point of failure. Whereas Bitcoin, you put it all on, as long as Bitcoin survives and they don't prune everything, as Santiago pointed out, the other Santiago, with as long as they don't do some update getting rid of all ordinals, then it's kind of there, and you can't do anything about it. It's there, it's quote unquote immutable. Let's continue. But if we care because we value art, is this really a problem? Well, I'd say we're so early on this. It's put it this way, as some people call it, I think accurately, the Bitcoin blockchain and history is the hardest data layer known to humanity, right? So given that, as an artist, particularly as a digital artist, it kind of presents an opportunity, I would argue, a royal opportunity to have your work inscribed somewhere that can be retrieved, theoretically, for 1,000 years, maybe longer. And I would say we have to be honest with ourselves. Do we think IPFS is going to be around in 1,000 years? Maybe Bitcoin won't. Maybe it gets cracked next week. But I'd say in terms of our best bet at what you might call resiliency or quote unquote permanence, I think it's unquestionable that the Bitcoin blockchain is our best bet, so to speak. To me, it doesn't have anything actually to do with the art itself. But in terms of where to put it, and there is also the sense of value of it being on Bitcoin, the kind of granddaddy blockchain. There is a sense of you're putting it on digital gold, whereas you don't have that, I would argue, with IPFS. Let's continue. But if the art is truly valuable, I keep sensing this impression that inscribing it onto the blockchain makes the art more valuable. But if the art is truly valuable, wouldn't it inherently hold its value through people's appreciation, sharing, engagement, and purchases? Yeah, so I would say we're talking about different kinds of value here. You're talking about the value of the work of art itself, but if we had no NFTs at all, or no, blockchain, the thing is, as a digital artist, your work, it could have been the greatest work in the world, but there's no credible way of buying or selling it. I would argue, I've been there, and some people were trying to tell me you can put it on a USB and then you do a certificate of authenticity. I personally don't find that credible. In my world, nothing against anybody that does. And for me, when I see something like, you can put your work on Bitcoin, and everybody has to make their own decision on that, because not everybody's into Bitcoin for environmental cost or whatever other reasons. But I see something like that, the hardest data layer known to humanity, and I go, that's pretty darn interesting as a place to put my art. And oh, by the way, you may not have much time to put your art on there, right? And oh, by the way, as far as inscribing it directly onto that blockchain, we only started doing that a year ago. So there's this little window, theoretically, where you can put your art on there, even though it has to be small size. But hey, what if? And then all of a sudden, and I would just kind of finally argue on this. There's there is art on the Bitcoin blockchain. There's a lot of nice art. There's not that much art, though, I would argue. It's all things considered, I don't see a huge amount of what I would art that I need to go and kind of purchase and be excited about. There is some, and just to speak very generally, it is there is not a ton of art on the Bitcoin blockchain. There is art, but there's not a ton, and I also think that's an opportunity, especially if this thing goes to 150,000 or 200,000 or the fees go up. As I was saying last episode, some people think the guy at Sovereign calling Bitcoin block space in a year could be the most expensive, computing that you can get, right? So imagine if you had your work on, all that being said, imagine you had your work on Bitcoin and you had the foresight and took the risk, and then all of a sudden you have 200 works on Bitcoin. How rad would that be is kind of the thought process that I have going on. And finally, one less point of failure. I don't need to worry about IPFS, right? The older I get, the less I kind of believe in anything, any institution. So IPFS is going to be there for, object's going to be there forever. Bitcoin should outlast, one would think, all of these things. So I don't want to belabor the point here. Let's continue, but I would separate the art itself from where you're putting it. To me, they're kind of different. They're different. That doesn't mean if you put any work of art on Bitcoin, it's going to be a great work of art. Or if you don't put it on Bitcoin, it's not going to be a good work of art. Not making that argument at all. Decibel 825 seems to believe that the easy duplication of digital art makes buying and supporting the artist a scam. Right. So the whole right-click save thing, we're long past that whole criticism, I think. And that's in a weird way, you could say that undermined Decibel 825's point. I think if they just stopped at IPFS, then it's I'm not unsympathetic to this. And look, I bought a Zozo one of one. I think we'll see it today, yesterday. So it's not like I've stopped buying, but it's a point of failure, you could argue. And so let's continue. What seems like a real scam to me is artists being exploited through minting and mining fees, which benefit anyone but the artist. Bitcoin and Ethereum transactions are not cheap. Well, it depends. I mean, everybody's got to come to their own decision, is how I would put this. Bitcoin is not cheap. I would say you get something for your money. You're getting a ticket onto the hardest data layer, the most resilient data layer. I mean, a different person was describing it like if the US Army wanted to take this out, they couldn't, right? I mean, that's resilience, right? So let's continue. Money is incentivizing, no doubt, but the true value of art lies in the interaction between the artwork and the viewer. Indeed, but there's a difference between that and a credible way of selling it. And this is what I would say. Look, I made art before NFTs existed. I made a lot of digital art. I didn't know what to do with it, and my whole challenge was how to make it physical, right? So when selling NFTs was an awesome way to be able to do that. It was a more credible way than the USB and the certificate of authenticity. For me, it was actually the first time it was actually credible. Okay, it does this link to IPFS, and it's registered on the blockchain. All of a sudden, it's hey, this is credible. I would actually say it's credible, despite the point of failure that exists between the blockchain and IPFS. However, I would say it's even more credible from just a way of buying and selling the art. I would argue when you inscribe it directly on chain. There's one less point of failure, right? And in that respect, in that regard, you have a better, I would just argue, a more credible way of buying and selling. I don't need to worry about it, other than if the Bitcoin people decide to get rid of all ordinals, which is not impossible. but probably unlikely at this point. It's like the battle has kind of already been won, from what I understand. So let's continue. Like, as an artist, am I really going to spend $10 so someone maybe buys my artwork, of which I will give a fraction of the full value due to minting, gas, whatever? I can't subscribe to this idea that it's exciting to see what artists can make with kilobytes of space because Bitcoin is so darn expensive to inscribe. Well, when it was at 8 V bytes recently. Like, I mean, it's expensive, but it's cheaper than Ethereum, I would argue, at times when the fees go low. Like, Ethereum can actually be a lot more, and you're putting it directly on chain, right? So it's all about what are your concerns. Everybody has to make their own decisions on this stuff. But I have to say, working small and seeing what you can make I find profoundly exciting as an artist. I'm working on a whole other series, the Dante works that were like 4 to 5 kilobytes. I never would have made that series without these limitations. And I love these limitations. Like, what can I make a work look good that's 2 kilobytes? That's exciting. Like, what if I can? Like, how cool is that? And you know what? Then I can put it on Bitcoin, right? I would love some clarity. So I hope I gave clarity in this discussion here. Atlas Pop, if IPFS is broken, the contract still exists. So if you can't see the files, say a JPEG from the contract location, maybe in the future you can verify the contract on the artist or art organization's website, where they might store all of their assets and their associated contracts. It's like, yeah, maybe, right? So all to say, thank you, everybody, for the comments here. Runtune, in other words, I'd rather mint 1,000 artworks on Tezos for pennies than to spend 2 figures on a single mint on Ether Bitcoin. Right. So I think it's everybody has to make their own decision on this. Again, I would love to see something like Tezos. I don't know. It's probably too late at this point. But what if they had like 200 megabyte block size? And if not, there should be a blockchain that does that. So let's continue. And just a few from the community here. Bosque Gracias. Awesome. Look at this. Rad work here. Made by Collage Magazine at Malaga. We're traveling and doing collages locally from postcards, magazines, and books. So also working on the road. And so very cool. Hopefully I see Bosque in Berlin when I get back. I think Bosque is visiting. Skull Takes. Scanner by LD Art Gallery. Yes, this was an interesting artist that I'd never seen before. Thank you for posting. Skull Takes with another rad work by No Hygiene. We actually have at least one in this episode. And Sanro, great to hear from you. And we have an artwork by you in this episode. And of course, Kurt Hustle Collective, and I think we looked at this last episode, doing the Lime. Just love their work. So we were saying Kells. Kells is on the scene. GM, massive cringe alert. YouTube channel launch. A mess on this first attempt. Apologies on the weirdness, stalling and bungling, but maybe scrub through if you'd like. I can totally relate, Kells. Thanks, Pocobelli, for the inspiration. So thank you, Kells, for the shout out here. So Kells is doing kind of like, as you can see, just talking about NFTs here. And I started watching some of it, and I think it's, I just got to commend Kells. It takes a lot of courage. The hardest part is starting. And you really are just kind of fumbling and as he says, fumbling pauses and cluttered espousals. There's no workaround, I would argue, to broadcasting. There's no shortcut. Like, there's like a price to entry, which is failing in public for a certain amount of time. And I'm not saying, it looks like Kells actually did a pretty good job and you're probably better than you think, is often what happens. But there is a cost to entry for broadcasting, and it's not for the weary, I would argue. Like, you have to truly kind of, to a certain degree, not care and just be willing to, every day, every time you post something, really put your reputation to a certain degree on the line and just say, that's what it is. This is me. So big shout out and congrats to Kelly Burns. New York, what's the musings? 16 subscribers, so growing nicely actually after one episode here. So congrats to you for posting this, Kells. It takes courage. It takes courage, and it looks pretty cool. I started watching, and it's nice voice and everything. Okay, let's continue. Beanie. This was interesting. This is fascinating. So, finally, it would appear sensationally that the NFT, like in terms of the PFP profile picture project, that bubble seems to be bursting. Shockingly. I mean, it's always a shock until after it starts to happen and you go, of course it was a bubble. Who knows? And I think it was Beanie, who's actually a pretty controversial ex poster here. Let's see what Beanie has to say. Of course, these are the CryptoPunks. For those that don't know, the famous CryptoPunk. Nearly no liquidity right now in the CryptoPunks market. And of course, the CryptoPunks are the most famous, most expensive, most celebrated profile picture projects in crypto on the Ethereum blockchain. Likely, I think it's on Ethereum, or at least celebrated by the ETH people. Likely, we don't see the bottom until Punk's over-the-counter capitulates some account, Punk's OTC capitulates, as he's the only buyer at the moment. The seller held for 2 years and lost 62 ETH. Now, ETH is at $3,300 about right now. So, however, because they bought the CryptoPunk when ETH was at $1,100, the damage is not as bad. Although in dollar value, it was only a marginal realized loss as ETH was about $1,100. So Beanie was also commenting, CryptoPunks have gone below 30 ETH. Like, this was a big deal. It is at $102,000. I've been following it. Like when you look at, if you haven't looked at OpenSea and the PFP projects, like if you look at Bored Ape Yacht Club, another celebrated, it's at 11 ETH, the floor. At one point, that was at 150, if I'm not mistaken. Those were going for $500,000. Now they're going for 33. And let me just show you something here. OpenSea. I'll just show you. Because it's quite remarkable what's going on here, and it's not getting a ton of play. So here's Bored Ape Yacht Club. Let's see if, here it is. And you go to activity, right? Just as an example, you see floor price, and you see what happened here. Up here, 129, 158 ETH, average price 158 ETH at the peak. Now we're at 10. And what you'll see here, you see there with ETH, and then there it's WETH, wrapped ETH. These are when there are bids beforehand, so you can just accept, right? So you see the lack of liquidity. Here's someone who bought. Someone is going, okay, it's low enough. I'm going to buy at 10 ETH. But you see all these WETHs, wrapped ETHs? These are all just people who had made offers and they're being accepted. And so you see how few buyers there are on the market. Here's another one, like buyers who are actively buying, who haven't already put in a bid. There's 2 in the last, 25. Here's 3. Here's another one. So, I mean, it's quite remarkable what's going on. This is all in the last 16 hours. So you're seeing I would argue, you're seeing a bit of a panic, and you kind of don't want to use that word lightly. But it seems like a bit of a panic. Here's an interesting tweet here. Kobe Wan, I feel like the NFT bubble popped without a lot of folks on my timeline realizing. Yeah, like the only reason I found this tweet is because I put NFT bubble into the search because I'm like, why isn't anybody talking about this? This is sensational what's going on. Like, I mean, it's quite something. Now here, this is Janny Surdis, Greek DX, replying to Artie Hands, who was saying the Tezos volume right now looks like a howdy do bid. Tezos not doing that terrible. I mean, 2,000 Tezos here, top buyers. I've seen Tezos at like $250 in the top 10. That's not so bad, if you ask me. Like there is life, and that's only at the bottom of the top 10. So I think, to me, this isn't as concerning as what we see here, which Janny posted here. This is OpenSea's volume. So OpenSea is the website we're just on, a major marketplace selling NFTs. Look at this. So going from billions to who knows how much this is, but almost flat. It'll be interesting to see this month with all of the panic selling if that goes up. I imagine it will. But it's going to be at lower prices. So all to say, quite interesting what's going on in the what I'm tempted to call the PFP. I mean, we've seen the art market kind of dry up a little bit on ETH just because fees were expensive. It was getting expensive. People kind of would rather hold their ETH, which was going up. Tezos to me looks actually pretty good these days. Like, and it's cheap, which is what you want. Like the art. So for me, kind of back to the Runetune discussion, for me to take the leap and go, hey, I'm going to spend $9 US or 14 Tez on a Zozo one of one, I can say to myself, this may be worth nothing, right, in 10 years, because not because of Zozo, but because of blockchains and how everything turns out. But I can also go, but if it is, maybe this could like be worth 100 times what it's worth. It's not crazy to think a Zozo one of one in 10 years is going to be $900. If this stuff does catch. So I look at the risk reward and I go, okay, Tezos looks great. I mean, it's always been a feature, the cheapness, not a bug. It's a feature. I think Tezos is 88 cents. It's like, good. People are going to keep selling their work because the risk reward, you're getting really nice cheap art, really nice art for cheap. And if this technology somehow holds together, and it seems to have been since 2020, we've seen auctions. If it all holds, and there's no reason to really think it won't, then you could really do well here. And also get a fantastic art collection. And that's another thing. Even if this is all worthless in the end, I can still go, hey, look at my awesome art collection. And I can still go, this gallery may think it's all that, but I think I could clean the floor with this, with what I have here. I could just like completely, obliterate, to say, even some museums, I would argue. You could, some people's collections here. I would argue, maybe that's a controversial take, but I would argue, there's something major going on. So even if it's worth less, for me, it's still worth something. And in that respect, probably to someone else too, right? Actually, let's quickly look at this tweet here by Artie Hans. My relationship with the space has fundamentally changed in the last 12 hours, much to think about. The reason I hate the trad art world just happened here. I'm livid and so incredibly disappointed. Well, almost to Runetune's point, like, I assume it's for some financial reason, right? Or some sort of trading thing. Like, I'm kind of, as long as I stay focused on the art, I don't really worry too much about this scene. I go, this scene's kind of better than ever. When you're looking at it from an art perspective, there are so many great artists right now, and they've all been getting better through this little market engine, free market engine. Even if it's just on Tezos selling works for $10, it's enough of an incentive for people to keep making art and selling their work, buying groceries with their art, getting a haircut, as Sky Goodman pointed out a long time ago. So that would be my kind of response to this, is just look, the art will make you excited. And finally, we can't expect the digital art scene to be any different from the trad art scene in terms of human nature. It's all just humans, working together. I would say the only difference is structural, where the trad art scene has much longer time to build up all these structures of gatekeeping, which really results in gatekeeping, whereas here there's still more opportunity because there aren't as many gates. And yeah, there is gatekeeping in the digital art world and in this scene and whatever, but I'd say it's just far less. It's still more open pastures. You can do, things can happen really fast. Even with Instagram, you don't even need to be in the crypto side of it. Look at Ocote. Look at Strange Thing on Instagram, right? Look at Human Boy on X. Right? Like when you start, if you can get attention, you have a business. If you can consistently get a certain amount of attention, you have a business as an artist, and just as anything. Because the worst case scenario is you sell some advertising if you can get the attention. So the attention economy, as they call it. Another just kind of take on it, again, we don't need to be entirely crypto focused. I would also say, like, here's Walk. 24 hours left on Woody, so a physical work here. And Walk, being an internet-based artist selling on eBay and continuing to sell work, like $51 for this gorgeous work of art. This is a total win-win. This is a win for Walk, and this is a massive win for whatever collector walks away with this, probably for under $200. We saw how good these look in the past part too. And as we know, Walk does a super professional job. As you see the other side, stamped, certificate of authenticity, signature. That's how you do it, creating value. It's very important, those steps. Just another kind of interesting physical artwork here. As you see, this artist I'm trying to figure out kind of looks like cutouts, 16.5 by 11 inches. It looks like scissors here. So maybe just like colored squares, as you see here. So making quite a beautiful, almost looks like an AI artwork, doesn't it? To our AI discussion. Look how beautiful this is. It looks like a painting, so just really talented. Lola Dupre. And here you get a little hint of what's going on, or is it painted on top? I'm still trying to figure it out. But the results are beautiful. Lola Dupre. Let's see how many, just what kind of reaction this is getting. 69 retweets, 537. X is a good place to still post your art. 14,000 views. I mean, that was worth posting, wasn't it? Pretty good. And here is Ilya Barabin. I'm working high, y'all, and I thought this was hilarious. A cell phone. This is like a modern, painter's studio, and there is the cell phone being painted, maybe with an airbrush and everything. There is the background color. I draw slowly. I wanted to do it more. I want a personal exhibition. So just awesome. And here it is. On Zora. Look at that. So a physical work, free mint, 1,000 editions, Phone of Joy. I love it. A magic wand when you feel sad, photo of the work, paper, 30 by 40, acrylic, oil pastel, pencil, and airbrush. Beautiful. Beautiful, beautiful. So that is on Zora as an NFT. And I thought this was hilarious. Trippy Collector posting this. The plotters keep getting smaller. So Gillitzer Park is in Berlin, kind of an edgy park in the middle of Kreuzberg there, for those that know they're Berlin. Linus and Gillitzer Park. So pen plotting at Gillitzer, which is pretty hilarious. So even has a little battery there and everything. How cool is that? We have to speed up. 47 minutes. Clown Vamp. Last year, so this is also really cool. Last year I busted my art budget chasing a Harold Cohen triptych. So we saw there was the show at the Whitney. Remember Harold Cohen, early AI artist, pioneer? It's been home for a few months now, and it finally feels like mine. So I wanted to share and explain the context. It spans 45 years from before AI in 1964 to 2009, a few years before his death. And so here are the three works. I retweeted this tweet if you want to see it, if you want to read it. We can't go through the whole thing, but here's some early work. Quite beautiful, I have to say. And then here, more interesting work here. So this Harold Cohen guy, pretty awesome artist. So let me just see. And yeah, we'll just go through this here. So interesting results here. Trying all sorts of different things. So Harold Cohen, looking very interesting. And here is this. Okay, let's continue. Element Lee, perspective. So some physicals, some more physicals by Element Lee, probably using painting or staining on top of this cardboard, and then probably using, I would think, a laser engraver, but what does it say? Cardboard, acrylic, and wooden frame. Is that acrylic paint? I suspect it's acrylic is probably the brown here on the paint, on the cardboard. And then probably laser engraving is what this looks like on the cardboard, digging in a little bit into the cardboard and probably making it a dark color through the burning. So just more super interesting work by, this is in Vienna, Wien, Element Lee. So Element Lee doing really, really well. Here's another beautiful work. Gotta love the wood kind of setup here. And then this, I mean, incredibly original work, Road. This is also in this exhibit. I think just doing really awesome work here. I love the brush strokes underneath because it's just like, it's like any of us could have, theoretically, not necessarily, could have theoretically made these brush strokes, and then you just put this on top, employing kind of classic techniques that you'd find in Warhol, Sigmar Polka, paint underneath, and then you put a layer on top that basically has nothing to do with the underlying layer, you could argue. And here it just creates instant poetry. is what I call that. So just beautiful work from Element Lee. Here is another work, Flower. Interesting kind of colors. This one's digital, of course, and looking like thorns here. A little bit of texture, some color, gray background, a jet. This is on Instagram. Here's another one, Road. This is called Nightgrass. So just more beautiful pixel art from Element Lee. Very prolific. That's just a hint, a snippet of what Element Lee is doing. So here's another gorgeous work. This is Sabato. Look at these colors. Free as a kite. So this is for Nowhere to Run Art Basel, and I believe this has to do with raising funds for the UNHCR on June 20th in honor of World Refugee Day. So here it is, another awesome, gorgeously colored work by Sabato, and here all these kites in the sky, and all the different colored kites and everything, and someone getting one ready with what look like surveillance cameras, don't they? Surveillance drones on both sides looking at the refugees, perhaps, who are the refugees. Gorgeous work. I even love the pink. The decisions, like the pink of the string of the kite, is a beautiful decision. Really beautiful, beautiful work. Kind of looks like sunset. So this is 0 editions. Not exactly sure. We have a couple of more works from this show. Let me just quickly... Nowhere to Run, NFT drop, UNHCR, and let's see if we can bring up the works. And so you see here, Le Chat Noir, Sabato, Uxine, I believe I brought this up, as well as mech.txt, Violette Bond, Diane Drube doing her trademark clouds here, so we got a few clouds, and Eduardo Cac, Lego Glyph, Crypto Animation, and an animation here. So that's on Object on Tezos. So here's another work. This is Zora. Another work by Sabato. Please visit the Museum of Contemporary Art. They have a new parking lot. This is part of a series called Degen Drawings. And you see Beeple, Balthus, and more. And look at this beautiful parking lot here. You can see the different patterning here. Really beautifully, beautifully done. The parking animated and what looks like a big contemporary art sculpture in the front. And maybe that's the building. And even the bottom, these big chunky squares with circulating gradient there, and also here, not exactly sure, maybe that's a flag, not sure, and a duck and everything. Hilarious. Beautiful work. This is on Zora. Free mint, 25 minted so far. Beautiful. Love the font and everything. Nice production from Sabato. As usual, Nicholas Dietrich. So F sharp is the harmonic of the earth. So classic Nicholas Dietrich colors, kind of a different style of composition. More of a kind of freewheeling composition, almost these windows here. Kind of experimental, I would argue, from Nicholas Dietrich's kind of more traditional, what I'd say, narrative painting style. Kind of has always a bit of a Paul Delvaux feeling to the work. Enigmatic pixel art is what I like to call this stuff. And here you see just some beautiful, beautiful colors. Like, what is going on in this kind of pyramid here? This looks like a pyramid of Giza, the inside. So very interesting work here, as usual. Nice composition, when you take a step back. So just beautiful work, still available for 5 Tezos, only 5 sold, edition of 20. So Tezos is cheap right now. So $4.06, so pretty reasonable. Here is Mech, also in the Nowhere to Run series, A Giant Pool of Red Mud, and so... that is the name of the work, and there's an offer, there's an edition of 20, and as you can see here, kind of minimal color scheme, almost monocolor, but then with this beautiful pink or purplish pink and red, and kind of a classical feel to it, pixel art, with kind of like combining a lot of things, and then a bit of a kind of pastoral landscape in the background. And this looks like water. So kind of a wild work here. A Giant Pool of Red Mud by mech.txt, Michael Micasso. Here's another work, Martin Bruce, Organic Bot. I don't think we saw this. And this is the full size. And just another one of these, what I almost want to call symmetrical works by Martin Bruce. And of course, he was on the Spaces the other day, last week. And just a beautiful work, just completely original. And kind of has a bit of a organic bot feeling. And of course, Martin Bruce, I mean, again, the reason it's kind of hard to discuss a Martin Bruce work is because I don't think Martin Bruce is discussing it in his head. It was like the title of last episode, Visual Thinking. I was talking about Martin Bruce when I was discussing visual thinking in last episode. This is visual thinking at work here. Yeah, like they're, in a sense, to try and explain it, other than you can say some formal things that, it's moving, it's symmetrical, it's got some interesting texture. But you're not going to get much further than that, I would argue, because you're dealing with kind of intuitive visual thinking. Here's the Zozo. So I picked this up actually last night, 14 Tezos, $9, I think. Let's see if we can hear it. So there it is. Just another cool work by Zozo. You even hear the running water. I don't even know what it is. I know not what it is other than maybe a plant and kind of got a feeling of a window. Interesting composition. Inside plant house. Maybe that's what it is. Let us continue here. So 14 Tezos, 1 of 1. I wanted a Zozo 1 of 1, so I was thrilled to get that. Neurocolor on Omatidia. Just another, I'd never seen this work by Neurocolor before. Kind of cool. Just a massive response here. 144 retweets, 20,000 views, 100 bookmarks. Yeah, nice piece. So it looks like a new one, if I had to guess, from Neurocolor, whose work was selling for, I want to say like 100 ETH at one point, which is a huge amount of money. Like imagine like $200,000 or $300,000. I'm not an expert though, so that might not exactly be super accurate, but that's what I remember. PP Universal with some more interesting pieces here. A gun holding a cigarette, interestingly, and what looks like maybe a shot of alcohol here. Beautifully colored. So cool work. This is on Instagram from PP Universal. And here's another one. This one's on Object. Tetas in mi perfil. Maybe head in my profile. Not sure. Edition of 5 for 7 Tezos each. And here kind of looks like a bust of someone. And here, beautifully rendered kind of texture and pattern, contrasting with a pretty, not entirely flat, blue, almost like a pool here, but unsure, very ambiguous. Cool work though, and nice texture. Here is Yuri J, a concrete superhouse designed by award-winning designers. So new work here in this incredibly gorgeous pattern in the wall, which is capturing me, by Yuri J, of course working with musical instruments often. I think this is a 1 of 1. There's a bed, and there seems to be kind of a large window looking off onto a lake and maybe a setting moon. And look at this great kind of wall interior. This very rich interior. 33 Tezos. 1 bid so far from Kobe Say So. I mean, only $26. I mean, there could be, like, this is when I start to get interested in collecting. When, like, Tezos starts to go down, NFT market crashing, all of a sudden you go, oh, okay, I don't mind putting a little bit of capital to risk on a few artworks here, $10 here, $10 there. Here's one by RJ. This is from June 6th, so we missed this one, Technological Obsolescence. So playing with a few different works here, kind of has the feeling of a David Hockney portrait, mixing it with some kind of GIF-like snow and also a little bit of animation in the figure here. So interesting piece there, and that's an edition of 1 and sold for only $21, 26 Tezos. So you see, good deals. That was a week ago. Good deals to be had. Here's one by Uxine. Personalize your world of generalized hysteria. This is edition of 2022. And this sold for 30 Tezos each, selling out. Nice work in a tough market. Kind of has a bit of a feeling of the Thing from the Fantastic Four, but not sure on that. Probably a different source. And this knight in jail with a computer and some of these hoses and everything. So interesting piece from Uxine. Classic colors. You almost see like almost like a Knights of Templar type thing here. Interesting. So 44 Tezos on secondary, and we have another one. This is also in the Nowhere to Run series, The Familiar Unknown. So again, kind of a looser uxine here. And we see even some interesting outlines, which we don't often see, that are lit up. So continuing to experiment and innovate here. Classic surveillance camera with the arrow through it. Hilarious. The mask over top. Again, kind of bringing in a little bit more of the metaphysical elements that we see in the early work of uxine. Kind of tied up here, always ambiguous. There's always a lot going on in an uxine. Love the arrows through the surveillance camera. That's brilliant. This was posted on Instagram. I'm not sure if it's an old one by Myth or not, or one that's not released. Kind of liked it, though. Just a nice portrait. Beautifully done. I wish I could magnify more here, but Instagram's a little tricky for that. So classic Myth. Here is Renniefish. Listen to silence. Let's see if we can get some audio. Oh. Beautiful colors here. Kind of switching over to like green and pink. Nice music. Just awesome. So this is on Zora. 19 minted so far. And minted June 13th. So fresh mint there from Renniefish. Keeping it cool. Pinel, Marcello, Sawfish, and Manticore, part of Bestiary series. So we have a few of these. So this is a pretty fun one where they're in the sea. Kind of almost giving it like an animated, like as if the animation isn't just for movement, but where it actually looks like it's going somewhere. But I think that's just a function of the illusion. Here's another one, Sawfish and Manticore, also from the Bestiary series. So kind of a, I don't think there's sound, kind of like a medieval feeling work. Like it seems to be, if I had to guess, yeah, there you go. Creatures based on medieval bestiaries. It seems to be inspired by medieval manuscripts. So pretty cool work here. And here's one more, Phoenix Salamanders, also part of this 23-part series. So very cool. Here's two of them. I'm gonna close that in case of issues with the processor and the RAM. Let's continue Mumbleboy with another hit here, Emo Nichan. Rad artwork here. We saw it on the guitar, so physical, digital, kind of nice spray. Looks like a digital kind of airbrush here with a gradient in it, or at least maybe not a gradient, maybe cut off there in terms of the color. But again, you see all the care that goes into these really big compositions. I mean, it seems like Mumbleboy can pump these things out. There seems to be a lot of work on it, though. So just, it's amazing how Mumbleboy can make these very complex works and then sell it for only 12 Tezos. I mean, that's $10. So edition of one. And we have a few by Nuv 1914, Sabato picking up another one, 15 Tezos. Beautiful musical work here, playing the cello in nature and with this gorgeous purple sky. Love it. From Nuv 1914. Beautiful kind of metallic blue, gray, light metallic blue frame. Here's another one. Otoño. Looks like people having fun in the forest, carrying each other. Piggyback. Nice kind of circular radial gradient in the middle. Very fun work. Looks like two women boxing. Boxeo, also Sabato, swooping in. So more just awesome work here at a great price from Zozo, Boxeo, and one more, Escondidos. And here you see the teddy bears that we sometimes see in Nuv 1914's work in kind of with some trees, beautiful pink radial gradient, almost using perhaps the same template here. And also in flowers in the trees, almost looking like koalas or maybe koala bear. Maybe that's what an escondido is. 13 Tezos, and that was sold on June 10th. Here's Walk, Carmelian. We saw I think it's Woody Woodpecker at the start, and I believe this is part of a Pokemon series and applying Walk's kind of classic kind of you know, noise spray kind of technique here. Digital artwork, edition of 1, 3 Tezos at auction. You gotta love Walk's consistency in, I'm just gonna put it up. I don't care what it sells for to a certain degree. If it goes for more, great. But I'm just gonna put it up at 1 Tezos, whatever it goes for. There's something very philosophical, I would argue, about how Walk approaches pricing. It's very much, here it is, let the internet decide, right? Same thing on eBay, but it's the same thing. Very cool. Gloomtube, Pool Sharks. This came out a few days ago, May 31st. We haven't shown this one. So Gloomtube experimenting here with a very kind of textured style, interestingly. Massive white ball here, Pool Sharks. So I guess this is like a depth of field thing. Maybe there's a smaller pool ball here underneath. Not sure, but almost reflecting the head here, interestingly. Cool composition. This was sent to me. I think this was sent to just as a contest to previous owners of One of Ones, if I'm not mistaken. Maybe through a lottery of a certain kind. Some crazy theories, some kind of crazy theories. So continuing with the alien vibe here, also Gloomtube. As you see here, some weeds, and again, playing with perspective, depth of field, very kind of near and far, right? You see the moon, you see this very up close, you see kind of mid-ground, foreground, background. Interesting compositional experiments from Gloomtube. 10 Tezos, edition of 20. Here is a cool work by Jake Studios. This came out in April. I completely missed this. I was just checking in on Jake and seeing what he was up to. Pretty fun, actually. Of course, object.com, where a lot of these works are posted. Very cool work and interesting background here. Not exactly sure what's going on here, but kind of looks like something, I guess part of the textured background. Not exactly sure what's going on, but pretty cool. It looks like a wall that is being painted over. And then here you have some kind of fence, a wire mesh fence. Wet Faint, edition of 100 for 77 Tezo cents. Here's I believe, Sui Soichi. It is, and I follow Sui Soichi. That is a glitch. Would go really well with our opener Mirit, wouldn't it? I mean, those guys could do a show together. Beautiful. And you see some combination of noise with the pixel art, with what looks like would be traditionally an illustration. So just cool mix of stuff here, super original. Even the yellow, the application of the yellow here, just very interesting work. Here's a new artist I haven't seen before. They may not be new, but an artist just found on Instagram, Drain After the Storm Emerged a Scourge, and I just thought it was quite interesting. You see paint here, and you see pixelation here, and just fusing the two seems to work, doesn't it? So just interesting work. Seems like maybe climbing a mountain or something. Couple of figures here. Interesting piece. And let's continue here as we wrap up. This is Pixelare. $102,000. Not exactly sure what this is. Design, stupidity, sofa. So maybe it's a sofa. Just super pixelated. And again, doing this kind of animation without animation. Like movement, but not animation, right? Dynamism, but not exactly trying to show a narrative, an animated narrative. One of one there. And what is that? That probably sold for 26 Tezos. Nice sale. Here is Anis Abdin with a beautiful nature work. And here you see it, a beautiful sunset, obviously, or almost always doing nature as his subject. Continuing on, Françoise Gamma with a work I'd never seen before, a style or a concept I'd never seen before by Françoise Gamma. Some big pixels here, beautiful color. And then you have this walking figure, which is a theme that Françoise Gamma often uses, and then repeated the whole kind of spectrum of grays, interestingly. And here's another one. I think I discovered this in Hasdrubal Waffles' X profile retweet. Nice find. Contortion 02. A different take here. Edition of 30 for 2 Tezos, and Aw Heck picking up one. Here is Brain Dead doing Keith Haring, Dancing Dog. So a cool tribute to Keith Haring. Pause and dance. Pause, dance. Almost like a video game. Nice dithering and everything. Cool warm grays. Edition of 8, and this is an open edition for 1 Tezos, so you can pick it up for $1. And here is Green Ginger, Midnight Star Wishes, cool title, and edition of 20. Unleash your wish beneath the whispering stars. So cool. Again, whenever I see these like minimally colored pixel artworks, you go, oh, that could go on Bitcoin. 18 kilobytes. But that's probably after it's been made larger. So this thing's probably only like 4 kilobytes, maybe less. So you can mint that these days, maybe $20, if I had to guess. Let's continue. Silva Santu's Annihilation. And so Silva Santu's pushing the Nintendo glitch ROMs here, with the spaceships going one way and the background seemingly going at a different rate in the opposite direction. Edition of 4 for 1 Tezos each. And here's another one, Invasion. Very cool work here, and kind of looks like the same horse, but you can't tell. And just another cool glitch ROM. This is an open edition as well, taking almost a similar tack to Walk. Just put it out of Tezos, open edition, whatever sells, sells. Interesting. Here's RJ again, with a super minimal work that was just minted, Green A. So interesting piece. At first I thought maybe this is even a soccer work with the Euro Cup. I think that starts today. The Euro Cup starts, it may even be on right now. I'm going to have to check that. So anyways, kind of has a bit of a soccer feel. I have no idea though. And this is an edition of 5 for only 2 Tezos each. And a cool work here, another car by Lorna Mills. And as you can see here, kind of funny, just kind of spinning the wheels and letting the burning rubber here, and a nice dark blue mask with his classic car here. Cool work posted by Lorna Mills. And here is John Cates, Glitch Western Wednesday, y'all. New art soon on Tezos with Fake Whale. I also need to post. I need to post a work to Fake Whale. So hopefully I join the party there. And just cool glitches from the Western glitch artist, Glitch Western artist, John Cates, who was on our spaces, and that was super interesting as well, out of Taipei, Taiwan. Here's Dylan. This is a digital drawing, interestingly, that looks like a woodcut. So would work fabulously as a woodcut. So just very interesting piece here from Dylan. Nice, kind of minimal, black and white, and really nice texture. Edition of 1 for 5 Tezos. And here's Sanro. Howdy from 2022. So just a big head, texturized here. And again, kind of almost like a Basquiat type head here. But done in its own way, and beautiful kind of textures here, cowboy hat, and who knows what. Cool work. Here's Inavare, The Tide is Calm. I think at least one of these axe, people holding axes on the sea. I feel like I've seen different colors of this. And so, interesting combination. We were seeing this in the X-Mortal, where there's movement in this looping video. In the X-Mortal, it was with the waves. Here we're seeing it with the dress, but then there's the looping of the tech, right? That's looped on top, which is its own kind of loop. So interesting piece, beautiful texture, beautiful colors. Love the pink and orange, and this really cool kind of boat in the background. Ambiguous work. LB, I Get Wild, available on our Zora. So cool walking figure here with some cats walking in different directions, or jumping in different directions. Interesting colors. And here is Kiro Protest. And let's take a look here. So beautiful. Beautiful, beautiful. Kind of has a bit more of a mechanical feel to it. Nice colors and everything. This is on Foundation. This is on base. You can place a bid for 0.0111. Continuing on. Continuum number 200, Kota Nakazono. And Klaus, you know what? I'm kind of back to, I think of Runetoon's comment again, like, put it this way. I would, Runetoon talking about, like, what difference does it make what chain? But then I'd say, well, maybe you want to mint your work on Matic, right? On Polygon. Why don't you mint your work on Polygon? Well, you could argue the network effects on Tezos and whatever, but I guess at the end of the day, the blockchain matters is actually another way of kind of attacking that discussion. I would argue the blockchain matters, right? And each blockchain has its own qualities, which actually weirdly is affects the art. I would argue, at least in my case, it's like, okay, I got to make small files. What does that mean? Okay, pixel art, right? For Bitcoin. Let's continue. Kota Nakazono. We're already at hour 15. I want to speed up here. Kota Nakazono with another work here, another beautiful work. Fortunately, I can't zoom in here, but looking beautiful. Continuum number 200. So big congrats to Kota Nakazono. Close picking that one up at 50 Tezos. So joining the 200 club. Here's another one. This is Renki. Yamato Futami. Always keeping it new and different here. Always progressing with the experimentation. Here's another one by Renki, this time on object. And again, just posting it but not listing it. So interesting piece here, animated abstract. Continuing on, look at this gorgeous work by Sky Goodman. It kind of has the feeling of shopping, which I'm a huge fan of, and I just love this work. It also gives a sense of like a Pinterest or a Google image results, which I also like. Very, I love this kind of structure here. Super interesting. And even like these brush strokes that you see here in the back, I mean, it really holds up too when you zoom in. I have to say, like, you know, like this is pretty awesome. I think actually Sky, I believe, is on the Spaces this Wednesday, so we can ask Sky directly about this. Edition of 10, and I believe sold out at 5 Tezos each. Nice work. Sky Goodman, Sabato, Trippy Collector, Art Monochrome, and more. Line extension. Very cool work. This is a wild kind of Kanek Zapata work, riding the wave. An old meme. Text is a screenshot of a text of a McKinsey work. Paint is a draft. Is a DR alt paint. Kirby is Kirby. So Kirby, I think, is a character. And then you have this kind of conceptual thing. What might be more interesting is to consider how the very... So, and then there's maybe some kind of definition of digital objects, which is a whole other thing. Which is a whole other discussion. The digital matter theory, which I'm seeing on Bitcoin, I think is kind of like in a world where what do you rely on? What's resilient? Using, again, the blockchain data as a foundation to build on, I think is a really interesting way of applying, of just kind of building, again, I'd say in a credible way in the digital world. But before I get too abstract here, let's finish this show, no hygiene, with some experimental work on Zora, more wild AI, playing almost with the selection AI version of the magic wand, seemingly, and this wild work here. Figure, free mint on Zora, Zach Krevitt from Zora picking one up. Look at this beautiful work by Tukes. This is stunningly gorgeous. I mean, amazing. AI. So yeah, some more of just beautiful work by Tukes. AI artists coming out of Glitch. So it didn't start with AI, which maybe helps. Tukes Escapes. And here, this is part of a huge series. Gorgeous series. This is on Verseworks from Tukes. So all sorts. Again, when you just look at the art, super bullish here. And I think that's where we got to focus, thinking of Artie Hands there earlier in the show. And everything. Like, I think you just have to focus on the art, and kind of that's where it starts and ends. Santiago with some beautiful additions to this AI art series. Here's one. Here's another. This one is on Object, Us at Work, edition of 15. And here's another one, Magical Protection Gnome. Little Cakes owns this. It looks pretty spectacular, and we haven't even zoomed in. I hesitate to do it because these files are so huge, but I can't resist. Just beautiful. I mean, look at that. Amazing. Nothing like it. And some really interesting works here. Speaking of CryptoPunks, which we saw earlier in the show, Mikey de la Creme kind of doing this AI variation on it, getting these incredible textures. So it's really hard to dismiss AI when you see these kind of textures, these kind of remixes. This stuff's gorgeous. Just stunningly gorgeous. Even have a little underpainting there. Beautiful textures here. So AI continues to dazzle, and this is kind of funny. This looks like, I think this is dye. I got this Toad was back, or Die with the Most Likes, AI Grail for $325, edition of 5. So I didn't realize that Die with the Most Likes did AI, so joining the AI party here, it's hilarious. It kind of looks like old works, uh, combined and mixed with a whole bunch of AI distortion. And here is some physical, another physical from Die with the Most Likes. These are gorgeous. These beautiful watercolors with pen and ink serve the customer, maybe a customer's head in a microwave. Sending these out to people, just very cool. Here's Moto Hero. Just more beautiful, original, surreal drawings here. Here's a painting. See if we can get a closer look here. I think it's a painting. It looks like it, definitely. Yeah, so just super interesting artists. From what I've seen, what we've looked at, these aren't huge, these works. Like, they're kind of like, like they're not huge. You can easily kind of buy and sell them, put them on the wall. Again, if I was an art consultant, I'd be like, you might want to find out how much these are, because maybe they're only a few $100 and they look great. Continuing on. Another interesting meme artist here that I'd never heard of, Cara Benedetto, with the Night Gallery, kind of a well-known gallery, I believe out of LA. And yeah, so here is the meme. I love Drunk Me, but I don't trust her. And yeah, so just really nicely painted. A good solution, for kind of having, it looks like acrylic. If you just do it straight up acrylic, is this acrylic? Aluminum, gouache, oil pastel, Prismacolor, and Sharpie. But adding this kind of Sharpie kind of adds, I kind of was doing stuff like this, frankly, about 7 years ago. Obviously not exactly like this. But when I see this, I see, oh yeah, I know that solution, because you're trying to make it different from just straight up. You're trying to add some kind of brushwork to it, some life. So it becomes a bit of a design solution using the Sharpie here, or these what look like acrylic markers. So interesting piece there. Also, Joachim Official, Miles Davis Quintet, and kind of like record posters or record album covers or music posters. Very beautiful work there. And here's Bondozo Bandito with some more just incredibly original compositions, trying out all sorts of DuckTales. Here's Ben Steyer, Pages, so a pretty good looking notebook, if you ask me. Kind of a new discovery for me. Ben Steyer on Instagram. Huge amount of followers, if I remember right, 57,000. Yeah, so pretty popular. One of these Instagram kind of artists, you'd almost want to call him. Donnie O'Donnell. So we've looked at Donnie O'Donnell before. A new work here of a dog. Get in touch if you'd like to commission a painting or your pet. So there's a ton of good art out there. Again, Art Basel is happening right now, but I think the deals are still, on Tezos and on Instagram. Jerry Meyer. This is a super cool artist. Like you see here, it's like a lo-fi JPEG and then painting it all out. Does it say? I assume this is like an acrylic painting. Here's another take on it, right? Crocodiles, right? So I think a pretty cool artist here. And see if we can find maybe just one more here. You see a polar bear. So playing with that kind of JPEG artifacts or, pixelation when you zoom in. You see it really nice in the shark there. Very cool. And Logi, it's official. Harabelle's in a package of sugar-free Smurf pastillers. So textile artist, you could argue, with some pop culture imagery, some nature, not worrying about filling in the background. It's perfect. Absolutely beautiful. Here's another variation, and then doing all these variations. I mean, there's a ton of great art out there. As you can see, you do not need to spend a lot of money. And Wok, once again, G-O-D, look at the virtuosity in Wok's application of spray paint here. A total virtuoso, collected by Uxine. The guy with the eye. That is your show, my friends. Thank you for joining me. And I will get back when I can. Otherwise, I'll see you on next Wednesday. I believe Sky Goodman is the guest. Until next time, take care.